And then I noticed someone snuck a snake into the mosh pit. Why? I'm sure he stuck it down his pants, and I guess security just didn't notice that he had a giant penis, or maybe they didn't grab it, but they sure grabbed mine pretty aggressively when I was going through the line. It almost felt personal. He was really going after me. He was even like throwing some elbows from time to time. Now let me tell you what it was like to see Mercyful Fate live in concert. Let me paint a picture for you. Las Vegas, Nevada, 2022. We were at Resorts World, the newest, most expensive property on the Las Vegas Strip. It had just opened up, and this was the very first music festival to be held on the property. Psycho Las Vegas, a mostly heavy metal music festival that I'd been attending every year since 2016. A lot of the content on this channel is about experiences that I've had at these festivals. So Psycho Las Vegas 2022, you had an interesting lineup. You got Emperor, Mercyful Fate, Suicidal Tendencies, Mayhem, At the Gates, High on Fire, Elder, Blood Incantation, Sanguisugabog, etc. And look, I gotta be honest, I did not plan on seeing Mercyful Fate at this festival. There were a lot of bands I wanted to see, a lot of bands I loved that I felt like I needed to be there for. Mercyful Fate, not one of those bands. Despite them being like the headliner of the festival, basically, I figured I would end up catching somebody else's set at that time. You know, they were not a high priority for me. I didn't plan on seeing them. And now I don't want to offend anybody, right? If you're a Mercyful Fate fan, power to you. And I recognize their significance. I recognize their influence, their impact on the history of metal, right? They've been going at it 40 years. I respect them. I respect Mercyful Fate. But when it comes down to actually listening to them, anytime that I tried to listen to them, I couldn't do it. I mean, I can't do the voice. It's the voice. I can't do the voice, man. It's too high and shrill and cheesy. I can't do it. It's too much. It's too much, right? I mean, that song Nightmare, where he's going like, "You are insane. You are insane." I mean, come on, man. Come on. You know it's ridiculous. There are bands with really high-pitched, kind of shrill or over-the-top, high-pitched, cheesy vocals that I really love. I mean, I love the Mars Volta, love Rush, Magma I dig, but something about Mercyful Fate, something about King Diamond's voice, I can't do it. I mean, trying to get through one of their albums is it's like torture for me, really. So like I said, they were headlining Saturday night. They were closing the main stage, and I looked at the schedule. I don't remember what it was, but I remember thinking like, okay, I'm not really interested in seeing the other bands that are playing. There might not have even been any other bands playing at that time. I don't remember, but I remember it was like there was nothing to do. It's like, what am I gonna do? Am I just gonna sit in my hotel room, you know, go to bed at 10:30 on a Saturday night in Las Vegas at a music festival? No. Am I gonna go sit at the bar and spend even more money on booze? No. Am I gonna go gamble? No. I might as well. It. Mercyful Fate's here, they're playing, they're closing the main stage, they're basically the main headliner of the festival. I'm gonna go see them, even though I don't like King Diamond's voice, even though I can't get through one of their albums. They're here, it's the main headliner of the whole festival, I might as well go see them, right? Even if it's awful, I can at least say that I've seen Mercyful Fate, right? I'm sure it'll come up in conversation at some point eventually. Hell, maybe I'll even make a video of it, right? That's kind of what I was thinking at the time. You know, what is there to lose? I might as well go check it out, give Mercyful Fate a chance. So, how did it go? So I went into their set, and I noticed right away they had a pretty cool stage set up, right? Good stage design, good production, and there were problems with this venue. There were problems with the main main stage of their events center at Resorts World. It's kind of an embarrassment for like a $2 billion property on the Las Vegas Strip, really, that this was their main event center where the main stage for the music festival was. But the problems with that warrants its own separate video, and it's not really Mercyful Fate's fault. If anything, they did the most with what they were given out of any of the bands there. So they get a pass on the problems with the venue. That's not their fault. All things considered, they did a good job. I got a pretty good spot, you know, pretty close to the stage, not right up at the front, but I mean, I got a really good spot, and it ended up being quite a fight to keep that spot. Seeing them live was quite a different experience, though. I mean, King Diamond's voice was like tolerable. It wasn't quite so grating or piercing, you know, it blended in with the instruments a little better. The instruments were all cranked up loud and super heavy, and it sounded badass. And, you know, seeing King Diamond up there on the stage, the guy's a legend, and all of that kind of changed the equation a bit, so to speak. So they started playing, everything sounded good, everything was going good, it was high energy, and then I noticed someone snuck a snake into the mosh pit. Why? And of course, when you first notice it, you see the guy, he's holding the snake up, it's coiled around his hand, and you're like, the initial reaction is like, well, that's badass, dude brought a snake to the Mercyful Fate concert. But then when you start to think about it a little bit, it's kind of concerning, because you're like, well, how did he get that in here? How did he get it through security? I'm sure he stuck it down his pants, and I guess security just didn't notice that he had a giant penis, or maybe they didn't grab it, but they sure grabbed mine pretty aggressively when I was going through the line. Just kidding. But I kind of tripped myself out over it, because I'm sitting there like worrying about the snake, like, oh my god, this snake is probably so stressed, it's probably so scared, with all this loud heavy metal music playing and all the people around it screaming and bumping into each other and all the shoving and running around, and you know, the snake was really popular. Everybody wanted to pet it, so everybody's like reaching for the snake and petting it, and I guess I'm a hypocrite, because I was also moshing and yelling, and I pet the snake, you know, so I'm probably a hypocrite, contributing to its stress, but also sitting there going like, is it animal abuse to bring a snake to a heavy metal concert? But you know, it was kind of funny, and that's emblematic of the chaos that was this mosh pit. You know, lots of people jumping around and headbanging and pushing and grappling and jockeying for position, and a lot of crowd surfing. You know, a lot of times with mosh pits, there's one that fires up, and you know, everybody's running around, they're doing circles, or they're push moshing, or they're hardcore dancing in the pit, you know, and you go in there, you have your fun for a few minutes, for a few songs, and then you pop out and you catch a breather and you go back in when the time is right. But this pit was more, it was like a slow grinding war of attrition. You know, it was a constant struggle just to like hold your ground where you were, because everybody's like fighting to get closer. So you're constantly working just to stand where you're standing and not get pushed around. It's constant work, and everybody's grappling, and you know, it's like a very long wrestling match. And I've been in pits that were like that before. You know, I've been in a couple that were crazier than this one in that aspect. But this was one of those pits, and you know, lots of crowd surfing, stuff like that, and you're getting shoved around from all angles, and just to stand where you are is like a constant struggle. And there was this guy next to me. He was a little shorter, but really muscular guy, and he was really like, it almost felt personal. He was really going after me. Me and him were wrestling like the whole time, and he was even like throwing some elbows from time to time. He was really, really working at like getting me specifically out of the way, it felt like, and I was like, no, I want to stand here, like, you stop that, you know. And we were like head to head, like grabbing each other and trying to like wrestle each other out of the way. And you know, it was like, you know, in The Office when Robert California has that guy over to his condo that he wrestles, and he says to Dwight, you know, he's like, oh, I could run 3 times a week, or I could wrestle Oscar. I don't remember what the guy's name was. He's like, I could wrestle this guy once a month and get my exercise that way. That's what this felt like. It felt like if I went to a Mercyful Fate concert twice a month, that would be like my month's worth of exercise, because of just how much of a struggle it was throughout the entire show, just to like hold my ground and maintain my position, right? Especially with this guy next to me who just would not leave me alone. And he wasn't the only guy that I had to contend with. I mean, it was all sides, and even Crowdsurfers over the top. But from all sides, there are people trying to, you know, get in front of you, get you out of the way so they can get your spot, so they can get a better spot, you know? So it was a constant struggle. But this guy in particular next to me just felt really especially dedicated to tangling with me. I'm not sure what it was. And you know, I wasn't holding up so well at first. I was kind of getting worked in there, right? And on top of me wrestling with this guy, and I mean literally on top of me, was a constant flow of Crowdsurfers. And over time, you could tell the crowd was getting exhausted. I mean, everybody was constantly fighting for their position, right? Everybody jockeying for position, everybody trying to fight to get closer to the front. Everybody's covered in sweat, and you've just got this constant flow of people crowd surfing. And you know, normally when you crowd surf, there's some kind of launch point where everybody's getting hoisted up, and then they ride to the front, and you get thrown over the railing into the arms of a security guard who helps get you safely back to your feet and out of the way and back into the audience. Over time, you could see that the crowd was getting exhausted, and all these crowd surfers, this constant flow of crowd surfers, they stopped making it to the railing. People were getting too tired to carry the crowd surfers all the way to the front. You started seeing them just dropping, you know, they were failing to make it over and over again. It just got to a point, people were too tired, they couldn't hold them up, and people were just dropping. And it didn't really stop people from trying, like people were still constantly crowd surfing, but now none of them were making it to the front. They would get to a certain point where everybody that was up there had been up there fighting for a half hour straight and were too exhausted to even bother with it anymore. They're just like, fuck this, we can't do it. I have prided myself with being able to put up with harsh conditions. I don't really pride myself on that anymore because that's stupid, but at that time I really did, and endurance was one of my things that was my ace in the hole, was I can out endure anybody. And you know, I did a lot of cardio on the Stairmaster back then, so I was built for these kinds of situations. Everybody around me is getting exhausted because everybody's been wrestling for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but that's when I found a second wind, right? That's when I flipped another switch and I realized I had advantage in there, and I started leveraging that advantage. Right, I found success creating space for myself like clockwork. I'm pushing everybody around me and creating space, and finally I can hold my own 2 feet and keep everybody away from me. That guy next to me that had been tangling with me all day, I finally started to get the better of him and get him out of my hair, and I started fighting my way to the front, and everybody was too exhausted to contend with me, and I just started wriggling my way up there, worked my way up to the front with the true die-hard Mercyful Fate fans, and they were having a lot of fun up there, you know, headbanging, moshing, just having a good time, singing along to all the songs, and I had a great time up there with those guys. It was a really fun time. The band sounded fantastic, the riffs, the guitar solos, the drumming, all of that incredible. The crowd, the energy was great, the fans were great. Mercyful Fate made a fan out of me, at least for the night, you know? I mean, I had a truly great time seeing them. It was very memorable. And as I've said, you know, I'm not a fan of Mercyful Fate, so I didn't really recognize a lot of the songs they were playing. I mean, I could pick up on like, oh, well, I think I've heard this before on one of their early albums. It seems like they played a lot of their early stuff. I did recognize Come to the Sabbath, because that's a line that they repeat a lot in the song. And hearing that song live was epic. I mean, that's a really incredible song to experience live. They closed their set with it initially and then came back with an encore. So that was an amazing experience. I mean, I had an incredible time. They sounded great. The stage design, the production, all of that, really good job by Mercyful Fate. So I would say, yeah, if they can impress a guy like me who can't even stand listening to their albums at home, if they can impress me with their performance, then I imagine if you're a fan of Mercyful Fate, then I imagine it's a blast seeing them live. I imagine it's definitely worth it to see them if you're a fan. And I'll never forget when the show ended, We were leaving the venue, you know, there was this big tent they had the main stage set up in. All these thousands of fans are just pouring in to this ritzy casino, you know, this ritzy resort on the Las Vegas Strip. Everybody's on their way back to their rooms or to hit the bars or the restaurants or the slot machines or whatever. But here you have 10,000 metalheads just all pouring through this one entrance of the casino, and we're yelling, we're chanting, you know, yeah, Psycho Las Vegas, Mercyful Fate, you know, there's chants going on, and it really felt like you were part of something, you know, we felt like a proper community. It felt like a proper music festival atmosphere, you know, so of all the memories I have of going to this festival over the years, that was one of the highlights, was everybody going in through the same entrance from the main venue, having seen Mercyful Fate, and it really felt like we were taking over the Las Vegas Strip. And so now you may be wondering, like, okay, well, you said you couldn't stand listening to them, you know, before you saw them live, you said you couldn't stand them, past tense. So what about now? Now that you've seen them live, have they made you a fan? Do you go home and listen to their music now? And sadly, I hate to say it, I still can't do it. I recognize, you know, I appreciate the instrumentals. You know, I think they've got great riffs. I think the music's all good, but I still just can't do. There's just something about King Diamond's voice that's still so shrill and grating to me. I've tried many times. I'll get through a song or two, and then I'm just like, it's just not for me, man. But that's a testament to how good of a live band they are, that, you know, you might not be able to stand listening to them in your car or at home, you know, the CDs that they've put out, their studio work, but you can still go see them live and be like, this is awesome, like, I'm having a great time, the music rules, you know, so that's a testament to their live sound. And I would say, if you do like listening to them at home, then definitely seeing them live is going to be amazing. It's going to blow you away. They really put on a great performance. But if you're like me and you just you don't get it, you can't listen to their music, it's just not for you, I would say don't rule them out. You might have an experience like I did. Even if you hate them, if you have the chance to see them, I would say give it a chance. And, you know, you might be surprised at how good of a time you have. You might end up liking it. They might make a new fan out of you. Who knows?